Me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true. I'll go first. When I was 8.
So y'all, I have COVID, so you're gonna get a lot of content today. Okay? By the way, I don't look like this. They have a filter on here that makes me look 100% better, but I have been battling with COVID, so like I said, you're about to get a lot of content. So first, I am going to talk about how I have the ability to see certain things. My first story is about when I rented this house, and it was a house from 1974. It was built. I don't know what it is, but whatever house I'm at, I just can see things. So I am literally one night laying down in the bed. All of a sudden, I hear these footsteps. The footsteps of running. I've always heard running in this house. Always heard someone running from the back. And this house had a very long hallway. It was like one of those, I guess, it wasn't a shotgun house, but pretty much it's those houses where you could look all the way down and you could see the living room. So it was about 4 bedrooms. So my bedroom was the master bedroom, which was all the way on the end. I would always hear footsteps of somebody running from all the way to the living room, all the way up to the master bedroom. So one night I was asleep, right? My husband, for some reason, did not like sleeping on the outside of the bed. So I would sleep out there. And I don't know why we slept with the door open this night. We never sleep with the door open. So, of course, we slept with the door open that night. When I tell you, I heard the footsteps of this child. It was a little white boy. A little pretty little white boy. Had on these clothes. It looked like to me that his clothes were from the 70s. He had on, and I kid you not, he had on a blue hat and a rainbow like coat. And the coat had it was those coats from the 70s. I'm telling you, he looked like he was from the 70s. Like you could see like the block coat, and you could see his hair was shaggy up under the coat. He couldn't have been no more than about 5 or 6. This baby was running, and he literally came to my face, smiled, and then disappeared. That was like literally my first inkling in that house that something was weird going on. My cats did not like going downstairs, and that black cat that just left, she hated going downstairs. We had like I forgot what you call it, a dumbwaiter or something. We had like a dumbwaiter in the house. And when I tell you, she would every time like we would go to that dumbwaiter, she would run from it. But I'm telling you that we would hear footsteps downstairs. We would hear like, and the little boy would run every night. I would hear that every night. The little boy would run from that living room all the way to my bedroom. And that was definitely some of the stuff that we used to experience in that house. But that's just one house. Another time I'll tell you, I had rented a house, and the house actually sat all the way down at the bottom of the cul-de-sac. There was only 3 houses down there. The houses, like how the cul-de-sac would be, you would come into the cul-de-sac and you would literally wind down to the bottom of the cul-de-sac. So this particular time, when I had lost my house. This was in 2008. So we had to hurry up and move to another house. So in it was about around 2008, we had moved into this house. It was a great deal, of course. The guy had just fixed up this house, and it was like one of those 1-floor houses. it almost looked like a double wide to me. But I had a beagle hound dog at the time. And so all the time, like my beagle hound, I had just got this beagle hound off of a farm. Like it was a baby, it would cry all night every time I would put this dog into the kitchen. And so I didn't know why this dog was crying and crying all night. I mean, it was a baby, so I just figured that it just needed to be in the room with me. So therefore, I would go in there, I would get the beagle hound, put the beagle hound in the room with me. And just so happened one night, I could not, like, I was so dry in my throat. I was like, let me go to the kitchen and get something to drink. I get up, go to the kitchen, and I see this whole outline of this man. Big old tall, he had to be about 6'4". He was a white man with his hair was like cut. He had a mustache, kind of looked like Tom Selleck, if you know what Tom Selleck was back, Magnum PI. But he had this real like shaggy kind of hair. He points to the drawer. I goes over to the drawer and I pulls out this man's driver's license from the drawer. Okay. I look at the driver's license and it's the same man that I see standing in my kitchen. He totally dissipates in front of me. I immediately was like, you know what? One of my experiences, okay, yeah, this guy basically wanted me to know he was there. And he wasn't a bad spirit. To me, he protected us, I'll tell you another time that he came to me right before, I don't know if you guys remember in 2009 when Georgia had bad floods, but he told me basically I had saw him again in the actual kitchen. And this man never moved his mouth. I was dreaming, you know what I mean? He never moved his mouth. And he was telling me in my mind that I need to get out that house, right? And I was like, why I gotta get out this house? I was like, I had the urgency to leave this house. I gotta get out of this house. I gotta get out of this house. And so all of a sudden I told my mother, I was like, Mom, we gotta move. I don't know what it is. We gotta move. I was like, we gotta get out of here. And so she was like, well, we've been here a couple of years at that time. And I was like, yeah, but something telling me that we have to move, right? So we literally moved from there over into, it's called Sandy Springs. We moved to Sandy Springs. And I have found this townhouse or what have you and had put my kids in another school. And can I tell you, it was about in 2009, I had looked on TV and bet I seen that house up underwater. The whole subdivision was underwater because remember I told you when you come in, you had to go all the way down to that cul-de-sac. And all the way down to that cul-de-sac was that house. Underwater. Underwater. Can you imagine me having children and that man showed himself to me and told me I had to get out that house in 2009. I swear, I still Georgia. That man who I pulled his license out told me to leave that house. Believe me or not, that's just some of the experiences that I have. Bye.
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true.
Oh, I have so many stories, but this one in particular was the one that traumatized me. Out of all of them, this one traumatized me, is the reason I will not look outside of windows at night, and I refuse to sleep in that one bedroom. We've been in this house for about 20 years, and this was probably a couple of years after we moved in. Don't know how old I was exactly. I didn't have a clock. I didn't have a phone. And it was the middle of the night, sleeping, whatever, and I woke up. Don't know what woke me up. There was no loud noise, no nothing. I just woke up and I rolled over. When I rolled over, I rolled to face my window. And, didn't really look at it at first. And then for some reason, I just decided to look at that window. And what I saw, the best way to describe it is like just the knuckle part of my hand. No, not the rest of it, just the knuckles of the 4 fingers, not my thumb. And it was going like this on the window, on the shades. And the blinds were those like thin paper shades that you like pull down, no slats, no nothing, like thin white paper. And I could see this. And I watched it for like a few minutes, confused, and then decided to get up and look out my window. Curious child. Big mistake on my part, though. And I looked out that window, and what I saw was this face. The eyes were wide, like you could see the whites all around, like the irises in the pupil. You could see all the whites, and it was like a bright white. And then the teeth were snarling, like nose scrunch, like that. And the face was black and green. There was no hair, no ears, no neck, no shoulders, no body. And the window's pretty high off the ground, so you wouldn't be able to see a person's full face like that close to the window from that inside. You just wouldn't be able to do it. It's too tall. And this was a good, like this, high off the bottom of the window, just there, kind of below this. And, terrified me. Saw it, immediately, like, let go of the shade, turn around, and booked it out of my room to my parents' bedroom. Woke both of them up, had them come into my room and look. They didn't see a face. They didn't see anything. Now, the whole time they're standing there, I still see this. This on my window. They didn't see that. I asked my mom, do you see like the hand thingy? She said, no, I don't see anything. Go back to sleep. There's nothing there. I refused to sleep in that room, so I ended up sleeping on my sister's floor, which is in the bedroom that was next to mine. And I slept there for one night, and then after that, I spent a few nights sleeping on my parents' floor before finally they convinced me to go back to my room. And I went back to my room, had maybe like 1-2 couple nights of no issues whatsoever. And then there was this night that, again, I was woken up in the middle of the night in the window, which isn't a regular rectangle window. It's got like the arch thing on top, and we had put like the stained glass peel and stick cling thing so you can't see out of it on there. And there was like a little light orb that shot across it. Didn't think much of it, thought my eyes were playing tricks on me, ignored it, whatever. And a few minutes or so after that, I felt like something was choking me. Freaked out again, ran out of the room, and refused to ever sleep in there again. So I slept on my parents' floor for a while until this room, which used to be a deck, was finished being built. And then I moved in here. Didn't really have any experiences after that for a good long while. And it wasn't until I was an adult that I brought this event up to my mom again and was talking to her about it. And I was like, did you really never see this? And she goes, no, I did. I just didn't want to scare you any more than you already were. And part of me was relieved that I wasn't crazy and that I wasn't the only one who saw at least this. But another part of me was a little angry that she lied to me and made me feel crazy for so long because nobody would believe me. It felt like nobody believed me. It was so frustrating. People would call me crazy because of it. And, I kind of felt a little crazy because, like, I clearly saw this and my parents were standing right there and they said they couldn't see it. And then years down the road, I get told, yeah, I saw that. I just didn't want to scare you more. So, all of that, fine and dandy. Never have been able to figure out what it was that I saw. The cops were never called to check it out and see if there was anybody out there. I don't know why. I was young. I don't know why my parents made the decisions they did on that. If it was me as an adult and that was my child, I would have called the cops and been like, my child said they saw a face outside their window. Come check it out. No. But, like, we never talked about it again until I brought it up many years later to my mom. But, yeah, so that's the story that traumatized me the most. I mean, I have many, many more that I could get into. Like, I could make more videos talking about other experiences. Like, I had a lull where I didn't experience anything for a good long while after this event. And, like, I didn't really start experiencing things again until I moved back home, like 2 years ago. And it's been a little wild since then. It has been a little bit wild. Most of the time I just ignore it, though. But yeah, no. Terrified me. And, like, the image of that face is ingrained into my brain in so much detail. And it's never gonna go away. Never. Ever. And I've talked to so many people who, like, believe in ghosts and or who know a lot about ghosts or, like, really interested or they're amateur paranormal hunters or whatnot. Nobody can tell me what it was. Nobody. And I've tried doing research to figure it out. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. So if anybody knows what that could have been, please let me know. Because, like, that's just something I can't figure out. And I'm curious as to what it was I saw. And, you know, I'm much older and paranormal doesn't freak me out like it used to. Like, I'm all for it and spooky, creepy stuff. But even to this day, if I'm here alone, I will not go on that side of the house. Won't do it. I'm here, Even sometimes at night, when everyone is here, I don't like going to the bathroom back there. I just feel like I'm being watched. It's just, All I know is something evil is on that side of the house, and I don't like it. But yeah, if you know what a green and black face that's like snarling, bright white eyes, and like this face was way too bright and clear for the time of night that it was. Like, you'd have to have like a flashlight to be that clear and bright in the middle of the night when it's pitch black outside and be able to see it like that. Especially if there's no lights in like the bedroom or anything, which there wasn't. There was like a nightlight in the hallway, that was it. But like, yeah, no, I don't know what it was, but I full-heartedly believe it was not a person standing there. It just, too many things were off about it for it to have been a person. So if you know what it could have been, please let me know. Like, yeah, no, like there's certain family members that I haven't told this to because it would freak them out too badly and they'd never come back to the house. And I already have one family member who refuses to stay here. So yeah, if you know what that could have been, let me know.
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true.
I used to live in a house that was a portal for spirits. This was when I was in 5th grade, and we found this out because we had a medium come out to our house. We had a lot of things happening, like our 2 bulldogs at the time would just run and chase things in the air, our grand piano would play by itself, and we would have things like doors closing by itself. Me and my dad's side of the family have like a 5th sense. We can sense things all in different ways. And so this didn't freak me out too much because it's not like things were bothering me. It wasn't until one night when I was sleeping, I woke up in the middle of the night and I noticed my bedroom door was cracked open, which I always kept my bedroom door closed that night. So I kind of figured that maybe my dad was just checking on me while I was sleeping. When I noticed the little crack of the door being opened, I saw a male figure like peering into the bedroom. And, you know, I was kind of like dazed because I had just randomly woken up and I thought it was my dad. So I closed my eyes and I opened them back up and the male figure was still there peering into my bedroom. So at this point I was like, Dad, I'm fine, sleeping, whatever. So I closed my eyes, go back to bed. Then I opened my eyes and the figure is still there. At this point, I think I'm like tripping, so I get up to investigate the situation. I was in a Jack and Jill bedroom with my sister, and her bathroom door was kept open, and I looked into her bedroom. She was sound asleep. So I open my bedroom door, I get into the hallway, look up and down, and there's nothing there. It's just pitch black, which the hallway on the left side of my bedroom was pretty creepy at night. I felt something was off there. I didn't go in there. So I head right down to my dad's bedroom. Walked into his bedroom, and he was like fast asleep, like snoring, you know, in that deep sleep. And my stepmom at the time was fast asleep too. So I freak out and I run back to my bedroom and I close the door and I put the covers over my head. I slowly start to take the covers off, and the male figure is right in my face looking at me like this. I was so scared that I got into like the biggest little like fetal position under my blanket, and I just slept like that the rest of the night. After this incident, I didn't see that male figure again. So fast forward to many years later, I'm in college. I was living in my sorority house at the time, so I had like 15 other girl roommates. We were out drinking like a typical night, and I left to go back home to sleep, and I ended up passing out on the couch in my living room. I woke up and I felt someone next to me, and a guy was rubbing my leg. I was so confused, and I like look over and I see this male. He's real. He's like 30 years old, definitely not a college student, looks really rough, and I noticed that the front door was open. Living in a house with that many girls and us coming in and out, maybe the door was left unlocked. I'm not really sure how he got in the house, but he was not supposed to be there, and he was touching me. I started to get in a little panic, but I try to keep calm on the outside so I can try and get him out of my house. We had a few bedrooms in the basement, and that's where I was living, and I kind of like was like, oh yeah, come with me to my bedroom. When we walked past the front door, I don't know how I mustered up all this strength, but I literally physically shoved him all the way out of my house, locked the front door. I ran down to my basement. I closed my bedroom door, locked it, and I went under my covers. I think I was maybe like one of the only girls home that night, and I go and lift up my covers, and I see the male figure that I saw when I was a child just standing in the corner of my bedroom. I knew this was the same figure because it was the same height and it was the same slenderness. Like, I can't tell any facial details or anything like that, but I realized that it was the same figure that I had saw when I was like in 5th grade. Until that moment, I realized that this figure that I had seen when I was younger was actually a guardian angel. And to this day, I think it's my grandpa on my dad's side. I didn't know him. I think he met me when I was a baby, but he had passed away because he was an alcoholic and had like liver failure, I think. And to me, it just feels like that this is him. And I think that was his way of showing me that he is protecting me and protecting me throughout my life, even though he wasn't there for me in the physical world. And when I was younger, I think maybe he was just checking on me. Maybe he was like playing hide and go seek with me. I'm not really sure, but he knew that I was so freaked out from that situation that he did not make himself known anymore until that moment when I was older. And since that incident when I was in college, I have not seen him again. So I'm not sure if he fulfilled what he was looking for or if he is still guiding me. I know that I have angels around me all the time, and I really appreciate his guidance and love on the other side. Let me know if you guys have had any instances with your guardian angels.
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true.
Okay, trigger warning. I'm going to be talking about demons. Now, to some of you, this story might be a little unsettling, as it is for me. And I might have to make a part 2, part 3 for this, but I just have to tell you piece by piece because this story is insane and I will never forget it to this day. So, a while back ago, it was around Halloween. A group of friends and we wanted to explore someplace scary. Now, back then, I used to be super into the paranormal. going and exploring abandoned places. I just loved doing that. It was so fun, very intriguing to me. However, I don't believe in ghosts. I do believe in angels and demons, and I believe that demons can take form into whatever they want in order to deceive us. Now, I had heard about this house in Texas that locals called the witch's house. And this house stood abandoned for years, and it was always empty. There were never any lights on in the house. There was no furniture in the house. There were no cars parked in front and back on the side of the house. There was no for sale signs, no trespassing signs, nothing. Completely empty, dark, very mysterious house. And it stood at the very end of a dark, dead-end road. And I had done my research on this house, and I saw that people were exploring this house, and they would hear ghostly voices, mostly a woman's voice. They would see ghostly apparitions, doors would close by themselves, lights would turn on and off. Some people would even get locked inside the house. So, that sounded great to me, you know. So, my friends and I decided to go check this place out. As soon as I drove up to this house, I was so intrigued by it. This house, when you see it, when you're near it, it kind of pulls you in some way. Like, this house is like literally telling you, come inside, like, come check me out, like, literally pulling you in. It is so intriguing, so mysterious, and I never knew why until later. So, as you walk up to this house, there's a long driveway and it leads to the backyard. There are no fences, there are no gates, it just leads straight to the backyard. So my friends and I walk up this driveway, and we notice that there are lights on in the house and that the back door is completely wide open. So we look at each other and we're like, is there somebody here? Should we leave or should we still explore? So we were probably standing there for about an hour trying to figure out whether we want to go inside this house or not. But something was telling us to go inside the house. So that's what we did. As soon as we walked into this house, you can feel this pressure on your head, almost as if you're about to get a headache or a massive migraine. It's just this bad pressure, and my heart started racing, and I started getting really hot. It was just a very bad feeling. So as we got further into this house, one of my friends and I had heard clear as day a woman's voice. We couldn't make out what it said, but we knew that that was a woman's voice. It literally sounded like a woman. And we looked at each other and we were like, did you hear that? And we asked the others. They didn't hear it. It was just us two that heard the woman's voice. So we were like, okay, whatever. We just brushed it off, decided to go explore the rest of this house. Now, one of my friends in the group is very sensitive to the paranormal, I guess. They can feel when something's off, when something's wrong, when something's negative, you name it. As am I. I'm an empath, so I can feel that as well. So we pass by this room, this one room, and immediately my friend was like, no, we are not going in that room. I feel something negative in there. No. So we don't go into that room. and we just decide to explore the rest of the house. It's a gorgeous house. 3 stories, very big house, beautiful house. But we didn't experience anything else. So we decided to leave for a couple hours and come back. But when we came back, that was our mistake. Part 2.
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true. I'll go first.
I have one. So about 10 years ago, 10 or 11 years ago, I was working on a small independent film out in the middle of Illinois in some small town that I can't recall the name of, but the filmmaker put us all up at the bed and breakfast in town, which was this really old house that had been, converted to a B&B. And this really sweet woman ran it, very nice welcome, everything, obviously. And so we're there. First night, I remember it was a Tuesday, and we all, go to our rooms and everything. And my room was like a bedroom, then a bathroom, and then another room, like a den. So it was like a suite kind of like setup, and so I'm like putting my bathroom stuff away, and I look in the den and it's super cute, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go in there and work on my stuff that I need to work on for tomorrow. And as soon as I went in to that den, immediately I was like, no, there was something like so off about it. It felt eerie, it felt weird, it was cold, and I know it was an old house, but there was a significant temperature difference from the bathroom to this den. It honestly, like, it felt like someone was watching. That's honestly the best way that I can describe this feeling. I felt very uncomfortable. And so I closed the door and went and did my stuff on the bed instead. And then I went to bed. And in the middle of the night, I wake up to a scratching sound. I don't know how loud it was. Back then, I was a super heavy sleeper. Like, this was 10 years ago before I had kids. I am not a heavy sleeper anymore, unfortunately, although I guess fortunately, because I have kids. So I was a very heavy sleeper back then. Case in point, we had one time an intruder in the basement of our apartment, 3 flat, and the cops were called, and I slept through the entire thing. Cops running up and down the hallway, everything. I slept through the whole thing, found out about it the next morning. So that's how heavy of a sleeper I was. So anyway, so I wake up to this scratching noise, and my eyes are closed, and I'm like, what is that? What could that be? I'm thinking, like, is it a tree? Like on the outside, like on right outside the wall of the house, like scratching, the side of the house. Maybe that's it. And so I opened my eyes, and right there on the wall, I saw a shadow. It was not a figure, like it wasn't, like a solid person or anything. It was a shadow on the wall of a person. I saw like a head and shoulders. I did not turn around to check if someone was behind me because I was alone in that room. So I just pulled the covers over my head and went to sleep because I was terrified. And woke up the next day. I didn't tell anybody about this. I didn't want to be that weird girl that's like, my hotel room is haunted, even though it totally was. And I didn't want to, like, I don't know, make any drama or anything. I didn't want to seem like I wasn't appreciative of, like, being, given this room. So I just, whatever. And then that night, nothing happened. The next night, nothing happened. Nothing actually ever happened again. But come Friday, we're shooting all of our outdoor stuff, and the director wanted to use all natural light, so the lighting guys had the day off. Oh, sorry, I just heard there's like people partying outside right now. It's literally 3 in the morning. Anyway, so where was I? So the lighting guys, they had the day off. They stayed and hung out at the B&B. And then Friday night, we have the like production wrap party. We were done filming. And these 2 guys come up to me and they're like, Allie, we have a story for you. And I'm like, what? And they're like, it's about your room. Just like my chills. I was like, oh, what? What are you going to tell me about my room? So this is what the woman told them. She had had a medium come at some point, I don't know, to like check out the house. The only place that the medium got any type of activity was my room, specifically the den. The woman has always had trouble keeping that den warm, even though there's like heaters like installed in that room, which I found out from the guys telling me that. The den used to be the maid's quarters. This is the kicker. The den used to be the maid's quarters. The door from the bathroom to the den didn't used to be there. That was part of the renovation. That was a wall. There was a separate staircase from the back porch that led up to the maid's quarters. And when they renovated, they boarded that up on the back porch. And but what this woman told these guys, now remember, I have not told anybody about what I experienced in this room. And this woman told these guys that when they saw the staircase, there were scratches along the wall, like going up the staircase or down, I don't know. So her theory was like maybe this woman had nice nails and liked to scratch her nails along the wood as she walked up and down the stairs, or like, I don't know if she had a tool, or like maybe she was just a very tactile person and liked to scratch things. Anyway, there were scratches. When I am staying in this B&B, this staircase is boarded up. Oh my God. That's me. I just spooked myself. So anyway, so yeah, so the staircase is boarded up, and on the boarded up like wall, there's a painting of this maid, and she looked like me. Can't really tell with the lighting, but my hair is red. She was fair with freckles, red hair, blue eyes. She looked like me. I heard scratching, and the next morning I went and looked around the house and to see if there was a tree. No tree. So what was the scratching? I think it was her. Yeah. Super creepy. Needless to say, that night I made several people sleep in that room with me. I was not going to sleep in there alone. But my theory is the first night, I think she was just kind of like checking me out to see, I don't know, if I was trouble or not. I don't know. But we were cool after that. But yeah, that story still kind of creeps me out to this day. It's a fun one to tell.
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true. I'll go.
So I love this trend. I've seen a lot of people do this. Mine aren't as scary as other people's, but I just kind of like to share it just because it's kind of cool to see other people that can kind of relate to you regarding paranormal activity in their life. And I've had like a few different situations happen I don't know if they're related. I don't know if it's the same entity. I don't think it is, because I've felt like presences specifically after people that I love have passed away. Like, I know that they're around me and I can physically feel their presence, whether or not it's me driving in the car and I know that they're in my passenger seat, or even like in my bedroom. But yeah, so I'm just gonna share. And I've had it happen in different states too, in different homes. So it's not like it was constantly like in one place. So one of the stories that I have, I was living in Colorado and my parents built this house from scratch. So it was like literally in a field. They built this home. It was a very nice house. It was a ranch. It was 1 story. And I lived there with my parents, and it was me, and then we had 2 cats. And it was a 1 story house. It was a ranch. And behind my bedroom was a very long hallway. Now, my cats, like my cat Samantha, she was a little tiny calico. She slept with my parents every single night. They locked their door with her in it because she had health issues. So they wanted to make sure that she was getting her medicated food every night. And then I had another cat who's a Maine Coon. She often slept with me on the bed. And often at night, I would feel my cat by my feet. My parents would be asleep. And I would hear behind my bedroom. So it was like my bedroom, my bed was up against the wall. And then here was the long hallway. And then the door was like over here. So then you exit the door, the bathroom's over here. And then there was like a huge long hallway, the front door. And then down here was like my parents' bedroom. So it was pretty far away. But I would hear like running, stomping footsteps down the hallway in the middle of the night. And my cat would be at my feet. So like I knew it wasn't her. And I would hear it more than once. I heard it a few times. It would wake me up in the middle of the night and scare the crap out of me. Because I felt like there was somebody in the house. But then if I ever left my bedroom and checked the hallway, like there was nobody there. My parents were fast asleep in their bedroom. So that was kind of terrifying the few times that happened. And I did bring it up to my parents, and they said that it was the cats. But it wasn't the cat, because the cat was sleeping by my feet. The other cat was locked in there. So that was scary. And then there was another separate incident in that house specifically. I remember I was fast asleep in the middle of the night, and my cat actually wasn't in my bed with me that night. And my parents were home. They were sleeping with the other cat in their bedroom. And my bedroom door was shut. And it was just me alone in bed. I was fast asleep. And I was woken up. The sheet was like over my head for some reason. Sometimes I slept like that, with like a pillow over my head or a sheet over my head. I was sleeping with the sheet over my head. And I was woken up to heavy breathing in my ear. Almost like a growl. Like very deep, heavy breathing in my ear. And I was traumatized. So I woke up and I was so scared to take the sheet off my head. And then when I finally mustered the courage to take the sheet off of my head, I had blinds directly in front of my bed. And I just remember seeing like a flash of light through the blinds. And mind you, my blinds faced my neighbor's house. And like, it was like the side of their house. It wasn't like, and like, it wasn't from a car or anything like that coming through. It was like maybe 3 a.m. We're in the middle of nowhere. I told you, like, they built this house, and like, it was, at that point, it was pretty rural. It was suburbia, but it was like more rural suburbia. So that one was pretty scary. The flash of light almost like went in from my room outside of my window, like through the blinds, through the window outside, like an orb. It was like very fast. Maybe took like 2 seconds to go from in my room from outside. But I would say like that's like the first time like I've physically seen something and like heard something with my own eyes like at the same time. And that one was probably the scariest memory that I have. And then I have just like random times throughout my life where I've woken up with a very heavy sense of something was in the room with me and I was alone. And it's thrown me into panic attacks so bad that this has happened. Usually either my parents are sleeping or they're not home at all and it's just me. This has happened at a few different locations. So I'm not sure if maybe like these are maybe like, I don't know if like it's friendly, like maybe they're family members or people that I've been close to that have attached themselves to me. And I don't know. I don't know how to explain it. It's like a heaviness in the air that you can feel when you're not alone. Like you just know it. There have been times where I'll be on, and like I've had like tiny little things that are good. Like I had a boyfriend that committed suicide in high school, and there have been specific times where I felt his presence, and I like know it's specifically his presence with me. It's like I'll feel this heaviness. I'll be driving to a first date, and it'll always be like when I'm doing something like going on a first date with a guy or like something romantic, and I'll be kind of nervous about it. And then all of a sudden, the one song that he's recorded and put on YouTube of him singing, it's the only video he has of him singing, is to this specific song. And this specific song is Glad You Came. And it has meaning to it too. If you listen to the lyrics, it's literally talking about like, I'm so glad that you came into my life. Like, it has like meaning to it, and the fact that this is the only song that he's ever put on the internet, super ironic. But this song will always pop up when I'm on my way to a date. I've also had moments where I've done like, unfortunately, yes, I've done Ouija boards, and I know that's like makes me susceptible to having attachments to things like that. But I was in high school, I was very young, so I made stupid decisions like that. And I've also done like the little like where you can talk to ghosts through, my friends had one, so we did it once with him in the car, and he never met my ex-boyfriend, and it was his device. It wasn't even my device, and it came through on the device saying that it was him, and it even said how he had killed himself, which his family shared with me, but nobody else in the public knew. It was just like me, because I was dating him at the time, and then his immediate family, like his brother who found him, and his parents, and his grandma. So nobody really knew like what actually happened to him other than me. I don't really share that information, but over the speaker, he had described, because I asked it, because I wanted, sometimes there are little tricksters that can come through, and so I'll ask specific questions that I know my friends don't know the answer to see if it's real or not. So I'll be like, okay, like if you're my ex, like you say you are, how did you kill yourself? And I'll see if they get it correct. And if they get it correct, I know that it's him. And he's come through to me on a Ouija board before with a different friend, and then he's also come through to me like on those little like speakers where you can actually talk to ghosts over. So those are pretty much all of my experiences that I've had. They're not like super crazy. No, I don't have any pictures or videos or anything like that, but I know like inside my heart that they were very real experiences.
Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and make a part 2 because I dug around in Google Photos and found the picture from the story that I'm about to tell you. So this took place in probably late 2004, early 2005. I was a freshman in college, and I was driving back to spend some time with my family for like the weekend or a week or something, spring break. It was, I went to college like 3 hours away. So I get kind of the last little like bit of the trip, and I get a phone call from my brother. He had just gotten his first cell phone, and so I figured he was just, you know, like doing what you do and trying all the bells and whistles and calling people and all of that stuff. And as soon as he starts talking, I realize that something's not right. He sounds really nervous, just off. I was like, what's going on? And he's like, I'm fine, like nothing really bad is wrong, just can you get here? And, you know, so I'm like flooring it, and, you know, older sister protective, I get out there and thinking maybe somebody's like showing up at the property or whatever. But he takes out his flip phone and shows me what had scared him so badly. So he was just messing around with all the features on his phone, and trying out the camera, taking a bunch of pictures. And keep in mind, this is 2004, 2005, so like super potato quality flip phone photograph. But he was taking pictures in the living room, and in all the pictures, it's just like a normal living room, but in one picture, something shows up coming out of my dad's bedroom. So I zoomed in on the picture, like he's sitting on the couch. That doorway leads into the kitchen if you go this way, and then that doorway right there is my dad's bedroom. And what is that? I mean, he was home alone. There was nobody there. My dad was at work. That doesn't even, I mean, it's solid. You can't see the other side of the door frame through it. So there's something coming out. I don't know. It still freaks me out. So, like I said, I could talk for days about all of the things that happened. Like my family, when we were all living there together, came in one morning. We all woke up at like 2 or 3 in the morning. The vacuum cleaner was on. We all go into the living room and the vacuum cleaner's on and it's not plugged into the wall. So we just all kind of stand there staring at each other like, the hell do we do with this? It's not even plugged in. How do you turn it off? And as soon as my dad reached for it, it shut off. Never did anything weird like that again. I think, like I mentioned in the other video, like stuff would constantly move. We would see stuff like fly across the room. I was cooking Thanksgiving dinner one year. I was the only person in the kitchen. My dad, my grandparents, and my brother were in the living room, and a fork rises up from the counter and just skids across the aisle and goes under the refrigerator. I was sitting talking to my dad one day in his bedroom. He was really ill the last few years of his life, and so he was in bed. I was in a chair in his room, and from his side table trunk thing, his cell phone raises up, flies across the room. We just kind of look at each other and laugh, and I picked it up, brought it back, and it did it again. But it was just constant little things like that. We'd see shadows constantly moving, darting from the laundry room, down the hallway, things like that. The only time I was ever actually really scared enough to leave was one time I was home again from college. My dad was at work. I don't know where my brother was, but I ended up calling him because I could hear footsteps in the ceiling above the kitchen, just walking. And I thought somebody had broken in and gotten up into the attic because the attic access was through the garage and he didn't always lock that door. And so I called him and I was like, you need to come home right now. Somebody's in the house. They're up above, they're walking up above the kitchen. And he's like, Jessica, there's no floor up there. It's just insulation. It's all insulation up there. Human people are way scarier than ghosts or whatever. But that one freaked me out. I left after that. He had a moving girlfriend, or a living girlfriend for a while, who had moved in with her daughter, and her daughter, kind of the old cliche, had an imaginary friend that she would talk with and play with. And the second anybody walked into the room, she just kind of stopped and looked at us. Sorry, low battery. But the little girl would just kind of stop and look what is going on. Trying to think if there were, it was just always constant stuff like that. I had a friend that came and got touched in our billiard room, back room. What else? I was coming from Nashville, driving back through with a friend of mine, and we stopped by to see my dad because it was on the way back to college, and we sat there and stood in the living room talking for a really long time. And then when we left, she asked me, my dad had a surveillance system with a video screen in his living room, and she asked me why he had cameras pointed indoors at the living room. And I was like, he doesn't, that's pointed at the driveway. And she was like, but there were 2 figures on it, a taller one and a shorter one. She's tall, I'm short. She's like, I thought it was us. No, just 2 figures standing outside. Which I guess could have been real people. Somehow that's even less comforting because we live out in the middle of nowhere down a dirt road. But yeah, that's lots of stuff. Even before we moved in, I think I mentioned in the previous video, stuff had happened. We had family friends come to visit, And this was like when everything was up except for like the floors and the like paint and like furniture and stuff like that. So like all of the like framing and drywall and stuff was up. And they had a daughter who was my age, and I was like, oh, I want to go show her the house. So we hopped on the four-wheeler and drove down there. And we had like doors and windows and everything. We kept it locked because there were tools inside. And when I unlocked the door and opened it, we immediately started hearing male voices talking. And so we freaked out because we thought somebody had broken in. Got back on the four-wheeler, drove back down, told my dad, and he went down there, and nothing out of place. All the tools were there, doors were locked, windows were secure, nothing. So I don't know, it's a weird place. It's a very weird place, and especially for being like a new house. I always thought that was really weird. So I don't know, maybe it has something to do with the land. After I moved to college, the Historical Society did put up like a monument at the very end of the dirt road. It's like says something like Trails End for Pioneers. I guess there was like, it was part of the, westward expansion where pioneers like came through the area, and there were several that they said had like died in that area. So it could be related to that. It could be something totally different. It could be, I don't know, quantum physics converging timelines. I don't know. I just know like my own experience and how weird and creepy it was.
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true. I'll go first.
So I'm working on this story, and I've been trying to like figure out how to tell it. And I'm just gonna like cut to the chase. I'm pretty sure I got haunted by a djinn. And if you don't know what a djinn is, it's like a desert ghost. So when I lived in Arizona, we lived at the base of the Superstition Mountains, which already sounds like a ghost story in and of itself. But what the thing is about the Superstition Mountains is that the native culture like lived in the mountains. They lived way back in the mountains because in parts of the mountain, the way that the mountain sits, it's shady all day long. And our house was at the base, and there's this trail called the Petroglyph Trail that we were like relatively close to. And at the Petroglyph Trail, basically, there's all of these like cave paintings and stuff like that. But the cave paintings aren't just at the Petroglyph Trail. They're all throughout the desert. They kind of look like this, although some of them are more like animals. That one's not at the Petroglyph Trail. That one's kind of out by the mountain. But at our house, they had like done some sort of moving of dirt, basically, at one point, and there were a bunch of rocks that were similar shape to that one that were like buried in the ground, and so we never saw what was on them, but you could feel it. So what I need you to understand is like our house in Arizona was built in like 1945, right? So houses in Arizona are usually from the 90s and on, because Arizona just like didn't have people in it really before air conditioning. So our house having like any history at all is absolutely wild, because it just doesn't usually happen in Arizona. And it also had a fireplace. So when we first moved into our house, the very first thing that I did, I was like so stoked to finally have a house, and I have like this family portrait of my whole family. This is the portrait, so it's like all of my mom's siblings, right? And it's like one of those kind of already spooky photos because it was taken like in the 50s or 60s, and I inherited it through my mom. And my mom was murdered when I was 19, so like there's some like tumultuous history there, right? So anyway, my family's one of those families that is like, everybody in the area knows my family. They all have done really well. It's like sort of like the small town family, you know what I mean? And so there's like a lot of lore to our family, but my family's from Maine. And so when I put this photo up in Arizona, I didn't think anything of it, right? And so I put this photo up, and like I'm unpacking. It was like one of the first things that I do, because I find like when I'm moving in somewhere, the first thing I want to do is put stuff on the walls, because if I don't put stuff on the walls, I like it doesn't feel like home. So it was one of the first things I unpacked. I put it right up on the mantle, and the mantle was like a relatively thick mantle, like probably like this, right? And I just continued on doing whatever I was doing, and within 20 minutes of this freaking photo being on the mantle, I'm unpacking something in the kitchen, and all of a sudden I hear crash, and I'm like, what the fuck? And I go in to the area where the fireplace is, and the photo had come crashing down. you can see that there's no glass in this. It's because this was taken at my other house and the glass had been broken out of it when the photo came crashing down. And so it was just like, what the fuck, that was really weird, whatever. And I didn't think anything of it, but I didn't put the photo back up because it really honestly felt like, no, your family doesn't belong here. Like that, it felt like that, like deep in my soul. I was like, oh, okay, I guess not. And then we kept living there, and there were two somethings. There was a bedroom, like a spare bedroom, and anytime that you felt that you slept in there, like you could feel a kid's presence. Like you could just feel that there was like a little girl or something in the room with you. And it was always super creepy, and I hated sleeping in that room. And then there was another big black dark thing. It's the only way that I can explain it. It would just hang out in the doorway, and it would sit in the doorway and just like terrify you. And I wasn't the only person that saw it. My husband, who's like the most logical human being on the planet, saw it. I think my in-laws saw it. Like a bunch of people who stayed at my house felt this like really big sense of unease and this big dark shadow that would just like hang out in the doorways. And mind you, me living in Arizona was like the hardest thing that I've ever done. I was like going through all of my mental health stuff. I was like so depressed, and everything was just absolutely terrible. And parts of me honestly think that there was like an energy in the house that was like sucking me dry and causing me to feel the way that I felt, because it was just like I felt like we weren't supposed to be there. It wasn't land that we were supposed to be on, but we were occupying it, and it told us not to be there, but we kept being there, you know? So fast forward 5 years later, we have moved back to New England, right? We have finally left Arizona, and we go visit some friends. And I have a friend that's kind of like sensitive to energy or whatever, and we leave, we go stay at their house, and then I come home, and it was like in the middle of me kind of going through an energy shift and going through just kind of getting out of the depression finally and like back into who I kind of feel like I am in New England, whatever. And so I think I was shedding just some of the stuff. And my friend calls me and she goes, I think you left something here. And I was like, what do you mean? And she's like, there's like a big black orb of energy in the room that you stayed in. And I was like, yeah, that tracks. I feel like I'm kind of shedding that energy. She's like, yeah, I got it out, but like, I just thought you should know.
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true.
So you want to hear a ghost story? I got one for you. There was a doppelganger of my brother when I was growing up. I think I saw him about 4 times. Another time, his girlfriend at the time saw him. One of the first occurrences, though, was when I was about 8. He was 6. I was getting dressed, and I was, grabbing pants out of my dresser. And out of the corner of my eye, I noticed my door start to swing open. And I saw him start to come into my room, and I was like, no, get out, I'm dressing, like one of those things. But as I turned to like tell him to get out, he was not even there. And I didn't hear any footsteps of him like running away into the hall or running to his room, nothing. He was just gone. So that was weird. Pulled on my pants really quick, went downstairs. The next time, I didn't see him, but he used to play in the game room a lot. He would play on his Xbox and, frequently play whatever game was popular at the time. He had a very distinct way, though, of when he would quit his game when it was time for dinner, because my dad would yell upstairs toward him and be like, Dylan, it's time for dinner, screaming at him. And then, Dylan would get off his game, throw his headphones aside, get out of his gaming chair, and then run down the stairs. We heard this one time after my dad yelled up the stairs. However, my dad didn't know that Dylan was already in the kitchen. He was getting a plate for himself already. My mom and Dylan and I all looked at each other like, what just happened? Hey, Dad, by the way, Dylan's right here. He's not upstairs. He's like, oh, must just be the house settling. My ass, the house settling. That was footsteps. Anyway, another time, this was the craziest time for me, was I was getting ready before my afternoon shift for work, and it was beginning of COVID. So, you know, I thought, why not go get some food and have like brunch outside and like have my brother come with me, you know, get him out of the house for a little bit because he was still in high school at the time, you know, no school, no friends, no car, no job, broke. Anyway, he needed to get out of the house. So I was thinking, I'm like, okay, I'll go wake him up. I'll let him know that like we're gonna go get airport restaurant in town. That like was pretty fire chicken fried steak, you know, like that was what you get there. And so I'm thinking, I'm like, all right, cool. Like, I'm just gonna go tell him about this. We're gonna go get brunch, gonna hop in the car. As I'm thinking about this in my room, I see him walk down the hall. He's already dressed. He's wearing this red shirt. It was a like Netflix and chill joke. It just literally said chill, but it was a red t-shirt in the Netflix font. Anyways, it was a very Dylan-esque shirt. Basically, if he was a character and was animated, that would be the shirt that he was animated in. You catch what I'm saying? Then after that, I'm like, okay, cool. I don't have to wake him up. He's already dressed. He's already ready. Like, I just have to yell down the hall. So I'm like, Dylan, you want to go grab airport? Nothing. No response. So I'm like, did he not hear me? Is he ignoring me? So I walk down the hall into the game room. He's not in there. Weird, right? Because I just saw him walking down the hallway. Turn around, and I look towards his bedroom. His bedroom door's closed. He hasn't woken up yet. Huh? I just saw him walk down the fucking hallway. Nobody else is home, mind you. It's just us at the time. What is happening? So I go and knock on his door. Hey, Dylan, good morning. Get up. Anyway, he's like, oh, were you saying something? Yeah, bro. I was asking if you wanted to go get breakfast. And he's like, oh, he's asleep. Okay. Anyway, so I told him about that over breakfast, of course, and he thinks that's like, whoa, that's trippy. The next time, I didn't see this, but I was still kind of a witness to it because I heard some things. My brother and his girlfriend at the time were going to watch a movie on the TV in the game room on his Xbox, you know, like watch one on Netflix. He was getting ready to turn it on, whatever. Remote needed batteries, so he ran downstairs to go get batteries. And then his girlfriend, waiting, you know, just sitting there in the room, hears him run down the hall and stick his hand in the door. Like, he didn't come all the way in, he just kind of hung on the door frame and had his hand around, and he's like, oh, wait, I'll be right back, I gotta go to the bathroom. Just like, okay, whatever, why'd you run past the bathroom then on your way in here? Because there's one in the hallway at the top of the stairs. Whatever, he's a weirdo sometimes. Here's the door shut to the bathroom. Here's footsteps again. Dylan comes running in. All right, cool. What are we watching? Didn't you just have to go to the bathroom? That was quick. He goes, what are you talking about? I went to go get batteries. No, you just came up the stairs and you said you had to go to the bathroom. Like, I saw your hand in the doorframe. And for those of you who don't know my brother and don't know why this is extra terrifying, my brother is missing a fingertip. He pinched the tip of his right finger off in an accident when he was younger. That couldn't have been anybody else's hand but his own in the doorframe. And when he got back upstairs, they both came into my room where I was doing homework at the time, and they asked, did you go to the bathroom? No. Why? Well, because the door shut, and we heard the door shut, and Dylan didn't go to the bathroom, but someone did. Well, I didn't go. And we don't shut the doors if, like, you know, no one's in there. Anyway, so those are the craziest occurrences of the doppelganger in my childhood home. I don't know if it's still there. I haven't seen it since my brother moved out, and since I moved out. I don't know, maybe I'll have to ask my mom for some stories.
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true.
When I was probably about 12 years old or so, I was in my bed. I lived in a trailer, long trailer, you know, old, creaky, like 70s style trailer, and this was in the very, very early 90s or the very late 80s, depending on how old I really was. I mean, I could have been anywhere from, well, technically, theoretically, I guess I could have been 7 to 15 when this happened, anywhere in those years. But if I wanted to guess, I would be a little 12, 13, maybe, I don't know. Anyway, now that I've rambled for half the video, I was laying in my bed, and I think I might have woken up from a bad dream, but I don't know if that's just something I invented from telling this story, and then people are just like, maybe it was just a dream. So I think I put that in there later. I was like, oh, I just woke up from a bad dream, so that's not it. But no, honestly, I don't really remember. I just remember laying in bed, and I could have just woken up. I don't know if I dreamt anything or not, because I don't remember. All I remember is the relevant part of the story, which is that you ever get that feeling like you're being watched? Like, I don't know, just like a really eerie feeling. And I was laying in bed, son, like looking around the room, like, it's dark, can't see anything. And I don't know if you're familiar with mobile homes, but they're all pretty very, very commonly laid out the same. I was the end bedroom. You look out the bedroom door, and it's just a long hallway where you can pretty much see the whole house. Because it was a single wide. And so there I am, with the eerie feeling that I'm being watched, and sure enough, I look out my bedroom door, laying in my bedroom, I'm laying on my bed, and I look out the bedroom door, and, there is my stepdad, leaning against the washer and dryer, because naturally the washer and dryer's in the hallway of a mobile home. In fact, I devices, leaning against the washer and dryer, like had his arm propped up on the washer, dryer, whatever, and he was looking dead at me. No expression. It was expressionless. Back or what? That the ghost of my stepdad. Oh, what? Now, when I describe him, because it was dark in the trailer, so when I describe him, it's very hard to put it into words, because it's not natural. But the way I've described it over the years is, it was almost as though like it was a picture of him taken from daytime, but everything else around him was nighttime, like a photoshopped image, except for it wasn't an image, it was real life. He didn't seem to be moving. Like, he just, from what I remember, he was just standing there, looking at me. But when I try to say it, it was like he was in the daylight, but it was dark. And I emphasize that it wasn't a glow or anything heavenly or anything weird like that. It was just natural looking. It's just that he looked like he naturally was lit up in daylight while it was pitch black because it was dark. I think you could maybe see the faint shimmer of streetlights coming into the windows. 'Cause the trailer court had streetlights, but they were far away. But what I'm saying is he looked unnatural, out of place, because he looked like he belonged in the daylight, but he wasn't glowing like you would often hear of ghostly things having auras around them or something. Like, no, he was just completely normal, but just was in the daylight instead of the night. Anyway, my stepdad was very abusive growing up. He with terrible childhood. So it was very abusive. So seeing him there was frightening enough. Terrifying. Harry. And he was just staring at me, so I closed my eyes and opened them, and he was still there. I closed my eyes and I opened them again, and he was still there. And at the time, and this has obviously changed since I'm an adult, but at the time I wholeheartedly believed in God, and I was a Christian, self-declared Christian. My family wasn't religious by any means. I would go to church myself out of my own free will because I wanted to. And so the third time I closed my eyes, it was accompanied with a roll off the side of the bed. And then I slowly just like crept my head up. Anyway, before I was able to see over the bed, and out the door. I had said a little prayer to myself, God, please make this demon go away or whatever. And I crept my head up, and it was gone. Demon kite. So this is where it gets weird, because that's not even the weird part. The next day at breakfast, we were all sitting there, me, my sister, my mother, and my stepfather. So we're all sitting there eating our breakfast, and I was describing to them what had happened the night before. Now, you might be asking yourself, how is this even possible? And I'm asking you to tell me, how is this possible? I seen the ghost of someone still living. Now, I also get asked oftentimes, well, how do you know that it wasn't your dad? Well, it wasn't like I said, I described the light not coming off of him, but being unnaturally on him, for one. That can't be explained. And for two, what's a, the trailer made noises. Most homes do, but the trailer made creaking noises, in particular when you would walk. And I, as an abused child who always tried to avoid being in the general vicinity of his stepfather, I know how those floors sound when you walk on them, and I know his sound. Very, very particular thumping sound. If there was a small, tiny, minuscule chance that he did have the time to creep all the way back down the hallway away from my bedroom, by the time I crept my head up from the side of that bed, that you would have heard it. You would have heard him walk away, believe me. So that is one of the, I believe, 2 ghostly encounters I have ever had. When I got a little older, well, adulthood, I should say, I started believing, maybe he was time traveling. What? The memory is, obviously it's stuck with me all of these years, but it's hazy. But there wasn't anything overtly, old about him. He looked like he did at the time. Now, he went on to live to be 52 years old. And back then, he had to have been 530, something like that. So, it must be like Hollywood describes, that if a person dies, they will come be a ghost or whatever, or come back as, or however you want to call it, looking like they did in their prime of life. But why? Why is that? Leads to another question. Why is that Hollywood makes everybody young again? Like when the show Medium ended, they brought back Allison as a ghost, and she finally saw Joe, her husband, who had died years and years before. Why did they both look young? Why didn't they look like they did when they died? Well, he did, but why didn't she? She died as an old woman. Why is she now her younger self? I don't understand why this is, why Hollywood does it like this, but there must be some validity to it, because it's the only thing that makes sense. If my stepdad was time traveling as a ghost, he obviously would appear to look either in his prime of life or whatever timeline he was visiting. He would look like he did from that period. I don't honestly know. Do you? Does any of this make any sense? And then years and years and years later, after being an adult for years, the new information, courtesy of the internet, came out that there's a such thing as night terrors, and that this could potentially be one of those, but I seriously doubt it.
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable, but...
Hi, I had to wait until I could get away from my home and in the car alone, which is harder than, the combo is harder than you can think. Currently I'm sitting in like a quick check parking lot. My son and I have a strict policy. We do not discuss this issue at home out loud at all. Not in the house, not around the house, not in the parking lot, not even sitting in our car, nothing. Not until we're away. There is a shadow thing that lives in the apartment upstairs. I've lived in this apartment complex for 10 years, and in that 10 years, the upstairs apartment has had at least 5 different occupants because they can't keep them there. None of them say we're leaving because of a shadow thing. They all just leave because they're uncomfortable. The first time I saw it was several years ago. I was lying in bed, and my bed faced the bedroom door, and it was open. I sleep with the door open. I know you shouldn't, but I do. And in the middle of the night, something woke me up, and I opened my eyes, and along like the bottom half of the door, like the bottom half of the open doorway, it looked like someone peeking into the room while on their hands and knees. But something was just off, and the more I looked, the more I realized there was no changes in the light. Like when something curves, like the light like changes so you could see the curve. There was no curve. It was like a 2D stamp of just a black stamp on reality. And I was like, what the fuck am I looking at? And it just, my heart just dropped to my ass. I was just like, but I couldn't scream or anything because I didn't want to scare the shit out of my kid, who is autistic and would not take that well. And my cat was curled up right in my arms, and she wasn't reacting. So I'm like, okay, maybe I'm just having a mental breakdown. And it slowly pulled out as if it were like crawling backwards out of the doorway, and it disappeared. And I'm like, okay, maybe I'm dreaming. I'm sleep paralysis, something. And then I heard the click of the living room light that's next to my couch clicking off, which is the moment I realized that the light had been on in the living room, which is why I saw the thing so clearly. And it turned out the light, and the room went dark. Oh my goodness. It took a beat, and then I got up on shaky legs, and I went out to investigate the apartment. The doors were locked, all the windows were locked, and that bothered me, and that stayed with me for a couple days. And then from then on, it just started making random appearances. We noticed that it doesn't come down to our apartment like late spring through summer. I mostly don't see it unless the people upstairs move and the apartment complex maintenance team comes in to renovate and refresh the apartment. The thing does not like the maintenance people, and then it paces outside. We have like a big bay window in the living room, and you can just out the corner of your eye see it pace it back and forth, this like vague shadow, and I try not to look at it. When it's outside, it does all sorts of shit, but fall through winter, it will randomly pop up. I have to carefully keep my front door locked, because if it's unlocked at all, it will open my front door and just leave it wide open. I have a mail slot, and it's lifted the mail slot and then opened the door. So I know no one's lifting the mail slot because the door immediately opens and there's no one on the other side. It's turned off lights. It's open and slam shut cabinets in the kitchen. It's opened my refrigerator. I don't see it. I can hear it from the living room. It opens it, it moves the shit in the condiments, and it slams the door shut and hard enough that things in the refrigerator rattle and I can hear it. It peeks at us from around doorways. We've been sitting on the couch and it's walked behind us into the kitchen and then made a right and into the next apartment. One time I went to get up from the couch and I saw an arm laying on the floor that I could see through. It had just been laying there with just hanging out watching TV with us. I don't talk to the upstairs neighbors about it because I maintain I don't acknowledge it. It's banged on my windows and I don't acknowledge it. I don't look at it. When the upstairs neighbor currently, she goes to work very early in the morning and then comes home late at night. And while she's at work, it sounds like someone's moving furniture. And sometimes it sounds like it's stomping up and down her stairs. We don't acknowledge it. We don't talk to her about it. We know she's not at home. Yeah, it's been going on for years now. We've been living there 10 years, but we didn't notice it until I think it's been 5 years since it's made its presence known. But it's a shape. It doesn't even look human other than the fact that it's got like a torso, arms and legs. There's no face. There's no features. And the light doesn't bend around it. Like, it doesn't have any curves or anything. It just looks flat. And it just scares the shit out of us. And I see it. My son has seen it. He's watched it. And then he looks at me and I'm like, do you know how incredibly hard it is to keep a child who's autistic from acknowledging a goddamn shadow thing that walks through the living room? Someone's getting in the car. Okay. Yeah. My cat has acknowledged it twice. Once it was peeking around my son's bedroom door while I was in the living room. I was trying not to look at it, and the cat stood up and chased after. The thing ducked back in my son's room, and then she came out and spit out a housefly. So I don't know if she was chasing a housefly or if she saw it or it was involved with fly. I have no idea. But she really doesn't acknowledge it. Yeah, it scares me, but I'm a single mom of a disabled kid. This is like the cheapest apartment in the area. I just deal with it. But yeah, you had to wait for that story until I was away from the house, because I just feel like if I acknowledge it more than just being aware of it, bad things will happen. So we don't talk about it, but it's there. And it really wants to be acknowledged. But yeah, that is the second ghost story that I couldn't talk about from the last video. Okay, you guys have a good day.
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable,
but it's entirely true. I'll go first. So when I first started massage therapy school, I was so excited. I had never got a real massage before. And so when they came in, like the students from the semester ahead of us came in and said, anybody like a massage? Of course, I was like, I'll do it. So me and another classmate, we went in there. We got our, to get ready for our massage. And as soon as the girl started giving me my massage, and remember, this had never happened to me before. Like, it didn't ring a bell what was going on at first, because this had never happened to me. Something else had happened like the week before. Like I said, when it kicked off, it really kicked off for me. But anyway, when she started the massage, her name was Tish. When she started the massage, like immediately when she started, I started hearing the mother, and I'm laying there like, why am I thinking about mother? Like, I'm not thinking about my mom. And I'm like, maybe she's thinking about her mom. But if she's thinking about her mom, like, how would I know? So I'm just laying there like, okay, I don't know what I'm thinking about the word mom, whatever. I just brushed it off and enjoyed the rest of my massage. She was really great. She really was good. Anyway, that was that. Left the massage clinic, went back in the classroom, nothing. Went home, nothing. Went to bed that night, and it's like, you know, when you're asleep but you're not asleep. It's like that sleep woke state, that in between sleep and not sleep. Well, I started getting stuff from an older lady, and I knew that it was for Tish, the person that gave me the massage. And so I'm laying there, I'm thinking, this is got to be Tish's mom, you know, whatever. And so it wasn't like I felt her presence in the room, because I have felt that plenty of times. Like, you can actually feel somebody walking into the room and you know it's not a person. If you have ever had that experience, you know that eerie feeling of somebody walking up to you, but you know that thing, I don't want to say thing, but you know that spirit that's walking up to you does not have a body. I'll put it like that. Because you do know that we are just spirits having a human experience. We really are spirits. Like, what you see is just my costume. And if you think about life and death like that, it won't be so like sad when somebody passed away, even though it is sad. But when you think about it like that, especially when somebody's ill, let me get off that, get back on the subject. Okay, so when I say she came to me, it was like telepathically, and I could feel this lady, and I can tell it was an older lady, and I'm like, this has got to be Tish's mom. And so I had followed a few spiritual people and mediums and prophetic people on YouTube, so I knew what it was. I knew what to do. I said my prayers, you know, and I, you know, let God to know that I wanted to speak to this lady or whatever and see what she had to say. And so she told me her name was Margaret, because I asked her, what is your name? And I didn't say it with my mouth. I said it with my mind. What is your name? She told me her name was Margaret. And I was like, and I'm just remembering everything that I've the lady on YouTube, what is her name? What's her name? I'll think of her name, and I'll tell you her name in the comments, because she has told me a lot of stuff. Anyway, she told me her name was Margaret, and I asked her, how did she pass? And all of a sudden, I couldn't breathe. Like, I felt heaviness on my chest, so heavy that I had to turn over, because I was like, okay, I understand, Margaret. It was a respiratory thing. And then as soon as I got it right, the heaviness went away. And so I asked her, what did she need me to do? She wanted me to tell her daughter that she was okay, that she was where she is supposed to be, and not to worry about her missing birthday parties and graduations, and all of the time, every time that she want her to be there, she is there. That's exactly what she said. I need my daughter to know that every time she thinks of me, every time she cries and says, I wish my mom was still here, she's missing out on so much. Every time she says that or feels that, I'm right there. Tell her that I was there at the celebration that they just had at the house in the backyard. Okay, with the balloons. And she you know, she kind of got into it just a little bit. And then I asked her who was the lady that was with her. And she told me it was her sister. And I said, what is your sister's name? And I turned over. And when I turned over, that's how I know I want to sleep. Because when I turned over, I opened my eyes a little bit, like a squint. Because I didn't want to see nothing. Just in case I was seeing something. I didn't want to see nothing. How am I scary? But I'm not scared of that. You know? Anyway, I didn't want to see Miss Margaret, but I wanted to feel her and hear her, you know? So I opened my eyes just in a squint, and I could see the TV. I used to go to sleep watching this show. It's called The Old Adventures of New Christine. What's her name? Julia Louis-Dreyfus. I used to watch that show religiously. I went to sleep on that show every night. So when I opened my eyes in the squint and I saw Christine, I said, is her name Christine? And she let me know, yes, that was her sister's name. Well, and I asked her, how did her sister pass? I can't really remember, but I think it was like in the same, it was an illness, but it was in the same type of respiratory, it was something. Anyway, so now that I got that information, she went away. Her sister didn't say anything, but I could feel her sister. You know how it seemed like her sister was kind of standing beside her behind, like her sister was standing here, letting her do the communicating. And I could tell that this lady had passed like long time ago. Like she was an older lady, but she had passed a long time ago. So when I got back to school the next day, I'm like, when I went to sleep, back to sleep rather, and woke up that next morning, I remembered everything about that dream. And I was like, I have got to find a way to tell Tish what her mom said so she can feel better about her mom's passing. And she can know that her mom is always there with her. How am I going to tell this girl this? Because I don't want to look like the widow at school. Like, I don't want to look like the Miss Cleo at the school. I didn't want to look like that. So it was so hard. And it took me months. I'm like, girl, this girl is about to graduate. I've never met her a day in my life. I don't even know her last name. I don't know. I still don't know her last name. I could find it out, but because we went to the same school. But anyway, how am I going to tell her? Ooh, I hope I may have to do a part 2. Hopefully, let me talk fast. And so it took me months. It was coming up to where Tish was about to graduate, and I'm like, I got to say something to her. So one day she was in the massage clinic. I went in, sat next to her, and I looked at her, and she spoke, and I spoke, and I said, Tish, and like, how do you ask somebody if their mom is still living? When we don't even know each other like that. But I still was like, Tish, can I ask you something? And she was like, sure. And I was like, is your mom still living? And she was like, yeah, my mom's still living. Why you ask me that? Then I was like, her mom is still living, but I know this is for her. So now I'm like, should I even say the rest? What should I do with this information? Because she said her mom is still living. So who is this lady? But I know without a shadow of a doubt it's for her. So I was like, okay. I was like, well, and at this point I saw our instructor look over there, and I know he's very Christian. And so I was like, can we go out in the hall? Because I didn't want him to hear what I was saying to her, because, I didn't want to, I never want to offend somebody. But when you get a message for somebody and it's for them, it's something about a feeling that you get that I can tell this person and it won't scare them, it won't offend them. God can do anything but fail. You hear me? It might be part 2 of this because time is about to run out. But anyway, we went out in the hall and I started to tell Tish, I was like, well, do you have a family member by the name of Margaret that passed away like a long time ago? She's an older lady, and I got to do a part 2.
That sounds completely unbelievable, but
This is a story I swear I would never tell or talk about again, but my mom really wants me to tell it, so here we go. When I was in 5th grade, a new girl came to our school, and I didn't know her at all, but my mom and dad knew her mom and dad. They wanted me to hang out with her. Well, she was in 6th grade. She was a year older than me, and she had 2 younger sisters, and she was there 2 weeks or something like that, and they set up a slumber party sleepover thing or whatever. I get over to her house, but first let me add, okay, her house was out in the middle of nowhere, and it was a log cabin that her dad had built, and it was this 2-story lofty type cabin thing, and her parents were upstairs, but her dad had made in the girls' room built-in bunk beds in the wall, so they were 3 high, right? And the little sister was going to sleep in the floor, and I was going to sleep in the middle, right? So you had to climb the ladder on the outside of the beds and then climb into the bed, which I thought was cool. I was fine with it. But immediately when I got to the house that day, it was heavy, and it kind of felt like something was like the air was thick or something. So she kept acting weird the whole time that I was there, and she would like look to the left and right and back and forth, and I'm like, what are you looking at? And she's like, oh, nothing. And then the little sister goes, she sees this woman. Ghosts weren't like new to me, but I knew this didn't feel like a ghost. It felt like something else. Right? I would see like this dark shadow like show up and then like go away, and then around the corner I saw like these fingers come around the edge and then go like this, like around the door frame, but they weren't like regular fingers. They were like these really elongated black, like, and the nails weren't pointy, they were longer, but they looked like they had been like digging in something. They were like a brown dirt. This was like scary, whatever it was, right? So I'm already like planning my escape. Like I'm already like, okay, I'm gonna wait till bedtime and I'm gonna call my mom and I'm gonna say I'm sick or something so she has to come and get me. We were out there, like I said, in the middle of nowhere, and then her dad was like, oh man, the phones are messed up again, and he comes in for like dinner, and I'm like, what do you mean? What do you mean the phones are messed up? So this was like 91, 92, I guess, something like that. And he's like, yeah, they get down sometimes. And I'm like, well, what if I need to go home? And he said, well, you know, I'll take you home. You know, it's fine. It's fine if you need to go home. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm stuck out here, right? Like I'm not going to be like, hey, I need you to take me home, because my dad would have like ripped me a new one. Like, y'all know that he was mean, and he would have been so mad if I would have made this guy bring me home for nothing, right? So I'm like, okay, I'm going to have to stay here. Well, that night we go to get into bed and she has jeans on. And I'm like, why are you sleeping in jeans? And she said, because I can't feel her scratch my legs in jeans. I'm like, feel who? What do you mean? Who? That little sister goes, the woman, the girl that she sees scratches her legs at night. And I'm like, oh my God. You know, like, oh my God, what do you mean? Well, is she going to try to scratch my legs? And she said, no, because you're in the middle bunk, she only gets mine. And I'm like, you've got to be kidding me, right? You got to be kidding me. Well, we play games, we do whatever, and the whole time I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to see this woman. I've already like seen her hands, like, what am I going to do? And climb up, we go to get in bed. I'm not tired at all, like not at all. And all I can think about is this woman, right? Like, why is my friend in jeans to keep from feeling her hands? Like, what is going to happen? And under the bottom bed, there was like a nook thing, you know, for like storage or whatever. So something could get under that. And I'm like, oh, you know, so I climb up this ladder thing. I'm getting like sweaty I'm getting like red just talking about it. That was horrible. I climb up the ladder, I get in the middle bunk. So I'm trapped. It felt like I was in a coffin or something, you know, because the bed was above me and there was a bed below me. So I'm in this box in the wall, and I'm like, I can't. I was having like a panic attack. I'm like, oh my God, I can't sleep in here. They had it total darkness, no noise, no anything but fear, right? The only thing I could hear was like my heart slamming in my chest, and like my ears were like, womp, 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 you know. I'm like, oh my God. Then I hear like the bottom bunk, like creak, you know, what's happening down there. And instead of just like not looking, like curiosity, you know, got the best of me. So I lean over, y'all, and this thing is like leaned over her. It's not in the bed with her, but it's like if it was kneeling beside her, and it's just going like dragging down her jeans. It sounded like that, you know, like dragging down jeans. So I'm looking down at this thing, hearing this, and then I look at my friend, and my friend's just like that. She goes, shh. So I freeze, right? So this goes on for a long time. It was me still peeking over the side, like looking, and you hear like, and then she just stops and then like retreats and sucks back under that bottom bunk. Turns out they had a Ouija board in that nook underneath the bed, that she had made a homemade Ouija board underneath the bed. Horrible, horrible. I have never been so scared in my life. Let's just say I made it through the night. First thing in the morning, and I was like, I'm ready to go, because my mom wasn't supposed to come get me till like noon. This was like 9 o'clock, and he's like, are you sure? And I was like, yeah, I don't feel too good. Can you just take me home? I didn't care at that point what my dad said or did. I wanted to get the hell out of that log cabin in the woods. So he takes me home. I tell my mom, and she's like, well, you don't have to go back again. I'm like, no, I'm never going back.
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true. I'll go first.
So my mom passed away from COVID, unfortunately, and it was a very, very bad, brutal way of going, you know, like the whole experience of going back and forth to the doctors and listening to them, you know, tell us her prognosis, how things were going to turn out, you know, like it was just horrible, right? So I remember you know, the day that I got the phone call, and, you know, I was so angry because they called me and said, we're sorry, she didn't make it or whatever, and that her heart stopped, and should they resuscitate her, and we had always had an order to do so, and I feel like they didn't. Anyway, that's not what this is about. This is about like the energy and feeling, I guess, the presence of her being around. So when we had to do the planning and the prepping and stuff like that, I felt like she was around us, you know. Like, I remember trying to find songs to do the selections for the funeral and what we would play and stuff like that. Like, and I remember putting on Pandora and trying to find a song, and my daughter and I were in the living room, we were picking a song, and we landed on a song that we thought we liked, and it just was like, it stopped, and it was like, I couldn't move on to the next song, and then it was like some weird thing, and I just let the remote be, and it went to another song. So I hit fast forward, you know, to pick another song, because I was going through song selections to see what I want, and then I thought that was weird, but we kept going, so I kept pressing fast forward, not this song, not this song, and I landed on a song. I said, oh, I think she would like this one, and while it's playing, we're listening, like, she might like this one. Boom, it turns to another song, just like that. And I looked at my daughter like, that was weird, like, I didn't hit anything. And then we picked another song, and it did the same thing, so it kept repeating. And it was just kind of weird, because we looked at each other like, we felt like she didn't like that song, so she picked another song. And then I remember, like, a day before I had to go and do her makeup, I did her makeup. I was scared as but I did it. I thought she would want me to do it. And I heard a knock on my door, and I woke up, and I was like, yes! I heard Cynthia, and a knock. I said, yes! And I woke up, and I'm like, that had to be her. So very weird. So it was weird, because I heard and she said, Sinja, because we're Haitian, so that's how she calls me in Creole, Sinja. And it felt so real. It felt like when I used to go to school, and I would try to get like extra sleep, and she would like call me to see if I'm up, and I would be like, I'm up. So I got up like, yeah, like coming to consciousness. Like, that was weird. I heard a door loud and clear. It was so weird, and I couldn't explain it. And then just to be sad that I'm realizing that it's not her. And this was like around the time. Another weird thing that was happening is with energy, like the lights were flickering off and on constantly. This is the time from that we're planning the arrangements for her funeral and stuff like that, like days before. There was a lot of activity. And then my daughter saying that, you know, one day she woke up, I think it was the day before the funeral service, and she said she looked out her window, like she was inclined to look out the window. She felt led to look out the window in her room, which her bed is right by the window. And she saw like an orb, and she took a picture of it, and she showed it to me. And it looks like a little blurb, like a little, I don't know, like, think of like a jelly-filled cloud that's small and blurry. Like, it was blurry, but you see it. And I'm just like, that's so weird. And the fact that you were able to capture that is even more weirder. But like, it was a lot of energy in the house, a lot of like lights going off and on for no reason. And I just felt like she was visiting, like the whole knocking on the door, and then the whole like picking her song selection. I don't know. I just feel like that was her. Like, I feel like your body, first of all, she knew she was going to go. I feel like she was visiting, and she was letting me know that she was there by doing these things that she couldn't do physically. So she would let me know with the song selection, and then the light flickering, and then the knocking on the door with her voice saying hello. I thought that was like blatant, and I was like, no. And you know, sometimes you think it's your consciousness wanting to hear that. And I just definitely felt it was like her, like saying she's there, and then the light flickering just kept happening and stuff like that. You know, so I just took it for that. But it's almost like you discount it. You're like, no, because that sounds crazy or seems crazy. But when I think back about it now, I think that was definitely her way of like saying, I'm here. And I had one more dream about her. Like, she came with a suitcase to my house, but she looked like her younger self. And she came upstairs, but she was just like sad, and she just disappeared, and I never had a dream about her again. So very sad, but that's my. And another situation in the same realm of preparing and stuff like that, I had to do my sister's hair. So she was here. If you look on my page, you know what I do hair when I want. And she was here, and I think my daughter was here too, but I have a back room that I call my salon room. I have all my hair, tools, everything. And I want to say that I had finished doing her hair, and we were just chopping it up, just kicking it about what we're going to do, I guess, outfits and stuff like that. Timing, do I pick you up? Do I, come here? That type of talk with my sister and I. And out of nowhere, so I live in a building in Brooklyn, and out of nowhere, the doorbell rang, bing bong, right? And without hesitation, because the salon room is by my door. So that's the first room you come into. So there's no like walking through the hall to get to the door. So I'm in the salon room. I go right out my door immediately without hesitation because the bell rung, and it was a like not forceful, but like a good push, bing bong. So I go to the door and I look through the peephole and I don't see anybody. And I'm like, you heard the doorbell ring, right? Asking for confirmation to my sister. And she said, yeah. And I'm like, okay. So I open up the door because I got backup. She's here. I open up the door. I don't see anybody, but I open up the door. I don't see anybody going up the stairs nor down the stairs. It was quick enough to see if somebody was going up or down the stairs. So meaning like if I open up the door, if somebody rang my bell by mistake and they went upstairs or downstairs, you would have heard them, saw them, something. There would have been a lingering of a person. There was nobody there, like vacant. I walked down one flight just to kind of confirm. Nobody was upstairs. Nobody was in the hallway. There was no movement or whatsoever, just completely vacant. And I'm just like, okay. And I looked at her and we looked at each other like, okay. You know what I mean? So like that phantom doorbell ring was odd, but it was around the same timing. So this was like, I think at this point the night before. So she had a lot of activity around me and family before we went to do her final services. And it was eerie, but like still like I guess good to feel and understand, but not understand that that's what was happening. I can't put it on anything else. It had to be that. It had to be her presence just bubbling around in my apartment, letting me know that she's around in her way that she could. Sorry, this wasn't like a creepy story. This was just like a nice, like, wow, I can't believe that happened type of story. But okay, that's my story.
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely.
Okay, I'm not gonna call this a ghost story, but a spirit story about my mother. Okay, my mother was unalived in front of me when I was 7, 8 years old. So I'm just gonna make this short because I know y'all don't like long story times. Y'all get to the next story. But okay, the night of the funeral, first of all, we had to go live with my grandmother. So the night of the funeral, after my mother was put in the ground, we went to my grandmother's house. Of course, we lived there. So I was asleep. Everybody was asleep. It's 3 a.m. I get up to go use the bathroom. I look to my left. I'm walking down the hallway to get to the bathroom. I look to the left. I see my mom sitting on the couch. And you know how they make the spirits look like translucent, like they look like clear? That's exactly how she looked, no lie. She looked the same way she did when she was in the casket, same hairstyle, same dress, white dress she had on. And she was just like glowing, like looking happy, just sitting there looking at me. So me, as a kid, I have never been scared of anything, but like I ain't gonna lie, I don't like snakes and all of that, like spiders. I'm scared of this stuff. I'm not gonna lie, but I will, get active. But I stopped there and I just stared at her and I just stood there in shock, like, because, I'm already traumatized, dealing with the situation that happened to where I woke up out of my sleep or being unalived. And I'm just standing there looking at her like in disbelief. And I'm like, I don't know whether to be happy.
sad or what. So after I leave, I go use the bathroom. I walk back by. She's still sitting there. And it's dark in the whole house. And in my grandmother's house, we always kept a radio on every night, on low, to sleep. So I see her. I just stand there again because I'm a kid. I'm 7, 8 years old. I go lay down, go back to sleep. I'm not scared. The second night it happened again. I get up 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. I go to use the bathroom. I look to my left and there she is. They're glowing, looking at me again, all happy. It wasn't sad or nothing. I mean, she didn't have a sad look on her face. She we're just having to stare down basically. So I go use the restroom. I come out. I'm staring at her again because she's still sitting there. She's just sitting there, just sitting there, just looking at me. The next night, go to sleep again. Wake up 3 o'clock in the morning. It happened again. 3 in the morning. We have a stare down again. I'm in shock. I can't say nothing. Every time I see her, I just stand there and look at her. So I go use the bathroom, go lay back down. I never told anybody, because this is my first time having an encounter like that. I have never saw a spirit before, but I'm, sure they say parents come back and check on the kids or whatever. But, I'm 39. I'm about to be 40 in November. So I told my sister a couple of years ago, I said, did you ever see Mama, after she died or whatever? And she was like, yeah. She said, I saw her walking down the hallway with a bunch of angels. She was coming out the room to go to the bathroom one morning. She saw my mom and some angels walking down the hallway. She said she hurried up and closed the door. And I was like, why you closed the door? I said, I saw it too. And my mouth just dropped. Both our mouths dropped because we have never discussed it before. Because people don't believe people about spirit stories. I'm going to call them spirits, not ghosts, because that's horrible word. But, people never believe people about spirit stories, because once I did start opening up and telling people, I told some kids at my school, close friends, they laughed at me, which I was really telling the truth. And, it happens because some of us are gifted. I am very gifted. I see stuff. I can get deep into it. I see a lot of stuff. But when my sister told me that, I knew I wasn't tripping, and we just discussed this a few years ago, in our 30s. Well, I'm in my 30s, so when I tell people about it, they call me crazy or whatever, but why would a parent not come back and visit their child? I'm sure my mom missed me and my sister or whatever. So, this house I'm living in now, that's why I'm outside in this truck. I've been in this house 3 years. I actually live on a slave plantation. In Dallas, it's called the Miller Plantation. The area I stay in, I think this was a freedman town. They freed slaves from down here. I've been here 3 years, and I have been seeing haints since I've been in this house. Stuff has been moving, paranormal activity, just all kinds of stuff. Oh Lord, I got a million stories for y'all. These people are driving so fast down the street. I'm sorry, but I have a million stories for story time. I didn't want to convert to this side of TikTok, and go here and discuss this stuff, because I know, talking about certain stuff can open doors. But I'm talking about my mother. But if y'all want to hear about the stories or the other stuff I have, what's going on in my house that my kids see. And the funny part is nobody is scared, because, things feed off of fear. If you show fear, they like fear. You have to let them know, hey, I'm not scared. I pay rent up in here. You can't be in here rent free, and I'm paying all the bills and rent. You got to move around. That's when that blessing oil come out. Some people use sage. I wouldn't mess with it, but my religion, we do blessing oil. But I know I say oil, it's a Texas thing, but that's one of my GHOST stories, my spirit stories that I'm sharing with y'all. That's one of them. But if you would like to hear more, please let me know in the comments. And I will share more stories with y'all. I wish my daughter was here so she could tell y'all, about what we see and what we deal with every night. How we up and, not scared of them, but just up, being annoyed all night. But thank y'all for letting me share. Like I said, if y'all want to hear more, let me know.
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true. I'll go first. When I was 8 years
I actually had a fair amount of stories pertaining to supernatural, and I really want to share it on TikTok because I've seen like so many of these stitches on my For You page. And what I think makes my story unique is my spirit interaction was actually very wholesome, and I honestly love sharing the story, which is why I wanted to make this video. Just to preface, I've always been a believer in spirits. I've always believed in like supernatural, paranormal activities, and honestly, like growing up, you know, being so like familiar with all of that, I've always been like scared shitless. Like I actually was anticipating for like one day I'm gonna have an interaction with a ghost. One day I want to see like a spirit. You know, I was always scaring myself for some reason, and I really didn't have to. And I just think that's really important. Just knowing like that was like one of my biggest fears. So my story happened when I was 13 or 14 years old. I don't know, but I was just in 7th grade. That's what I remember. And you can tell that my room right now is white. My walls are white. But back then I had really deep, hot pink walls. My whole room was actually pink. And in the nighttime, it was very dark. And I typically used my lamp, which was in the corner of my room, and it was in the shade yellow. So it was just a very like dark vibe to it at night. And you know, because I had the lamp in the corner of my room, I would always be able to see like my shadows on the wall. So during this time I fell asleep, and I know it was by accident, as when I woke up sometime in the middle of the night, I was on top of my blanket laying like completely on my back, and my socks were still on. And yeah, so I just was not ready to fall asleep. And when I woke up, my body was at an angle where I was like directly facing the wall in my room. And yeah, I didn't have to like move or turn my head to see the wall. But you know, like when I woke up, I saw there were 2 figures on my wall. And I did clearly see that the figure on the left was a silhouette of a man. And I did note that he was like very skinny. He seemed really like chiseled and just a small framed man. And the silhouette next to him was just like a bigger figure, like a little, not round, but you know, like fuller person. There was no like hair or anything. There was nothing to really like see, but I did note that I thought there was a bun on her head, like a huge bun. And I just had a feeling like that was a woman. And, you know, as I said earlier, I've always anticipated like, oh, the day I see a ghost is the day I want to die. My life is never going to be the same again. But for some reason, you know, seeing those 2 figures on my wall, for some reason, I just felt lifted and I felt happy. And I remember the moment I saw them, I was like saying thank you in the back of my head, you know, like a small prayer, like thank you for visiting me. Like I wasn't scared at all. So I tell my mom and my dad the next day, like I just saw these 2 people on my wall. And my dad tells me that that was his grandfather, and that was my dad's sister. And obviously they're both dead. My grandfather, my dad's dad, is a very like skinny guy, while his sister is a bit bigger. And that was just crazy to me. So a few years later, I reconnect with my cousins. I go to Canada, and for the first time I'm telling them this story. They were just completely shocked, and they confirmed that it was my auntie that I saw. You know, I did tell them that I saw there was a bun on her head. And what they told me was like so shocking. Well, first they confirmed that, yeah, it was my grandpa. My grandpa was, like my dad said, a skinny guy. They told me that it was my auntie. What I thought was a bun was a vintage nursing cap that she wore. And they knew it was a vintage nursing cap because in my dad's old house in the Philippines, there is a picture frame, like chest up. That's what I saw on the wall too. It was chest up. Auntie was wearing a vintage nursing cap, which was like this, like big. And that's what I thought was a bun. I knew it was a big bun. I did not know it was a nursing cap. And when they verified that for me, I was like, wow, that really was my auntie. As the years go on, things just keep happening. And for some reason, it always happens either on death anniversaries or the birthday of those who are dead. The very next thing that happened was my fan unplugging. So I have an electric fan and the outlet isn't even like on the wall. It's like on the ground. So to unplug it, I was just in my room, my fan is on, and it just unplugs for some reason. And I just had an instinct that was like, someone's visiting me again. And I immediately Uncle, is today grandfather's death anniversary? He tells me no. And I was like, you know what, Caitlin? Maybe it was a coincidence. Probably just was a loose wire. But then he proceeds to text me, today is your Auntie Lily's death anniversary. Like, I wouldn't have known that. I did not know that. And that still, like, it's crazy. You know, I texted him assuming that, like, it was my grandfather. He tells me no, but then he tells me, like, today is your Auntie Lily's death anniversary. And I was like, what? You know, again, more things happen in different years. It always happens on birthdays or death anniversaries. I'm very lucky to have really wholesome experiences. And honestly, like, I enjoy knowing that, you know, I have guardian angels and that I'm being watched over and I feel protected. But, you know, like, it kind of caught me off guard. I hope all my stories in the future will always be gentle interactions, because to this day, I am still that little kid who is scared shitless for ghosts.
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true.
Hi, so I grew up in a haunted house for the first 20 years of my life. My parents still live there. My little brother still lives there. For context, my little brother is a year younger than me, so we experienced a lot of the same things together. I also have 2 older siblings that, I mean, I don't really know a whole lot of their stories. But anyway, so I've seen a lot of these talking about mimics, and the house that I grew up in, we definitely dealt with a mimic for a while there. So I'm going to tell a couple of those stories because they were spooky. So when I was probably about 11 or 12, I was straightening up in the living room. I don't know where everybody was, but I just remember it just being me home. So I was straightening up in the living room and like wiping the coffee table down and whatnot. And like the way that this house was laid out, it was super open concept. So it's like the front door and then the living room and then the kitchen. And so you enter through like the front door. If you were to like take 5 steps in, and then to the right immediately is like a little hallway. And then in that little hallway, there's like the door to my parents' room and then the door to the bathroom. And then you come out of the hallway and then you go through the living room to the kitchen. There's a bedroom off the kitchen. That used to be mine and my little brother's room when we were little. When my older siblings moved out, my brother and I moved into their bedrooms down in the basement, but I'll touch on that later. And so, I was about 11 or 12 straightening up in the living room, and like, this was like during a period of time where I was like really, really missing my uncle who had passed away from cancer in 2009. And, so like I was having frequent dreams about him, and I think he might have been visiting me in my dreams because I really, really missed him. And so we ended up, we have a pair of his work boots. So that's kind of where this is going. So we had a pair of his work boots, and I was straightening up in the living room, and 4 or 5 feet away from me to like my left is the hardwood kitchen floor, where I started hearing like the distinct sounds of work boots on the floor, walking toward me. But I looked up and there was nobody there. And the footsteps stopped when I looked up. And so immediately, like, I had thought maybe it was my uncle because we had his work boots. And I had been missing him. So that didn't really creep me out too much. Another time when I was 12 or 13, one of my chores was, if it was cold that night, my job was to stock up the wood stove before I went to bed. So at this point, my bedroom was downstairs. And so was my little brothers, because my older siblings were out of the house. And so, I had my back turned to the unfinished basement, and I'm going to specify that the floor was concrete. So, and the stairs were wooden and rickety and kind of creepy sounding, like they would creak if you walked on them. And so I heard the distinct sound of my little brother's feet running down the stairs, and then the sound of his bare feet on the concrete floor, and then the sound of his feet on his hardwood laminate floor in his room. And then I heard him jump into his bed. Normally, he would have said, okay, good night, like when he was walking by, or whatever, but he didn't. So I was like, okay, good night, buddy. And I just didn't pay any mind to it. 3 minutes later, not even 3 minutes later, I hear him come down the stairs. Again, exactly the way that I had heard. I did not hear him leave his room. There's no other way he could have made his way back upstairs. Like, I would have heard him. I heard him run down the stairs, and this time I turned around because I was like, what? And there he is. There's my brother. And he runs into his room. He says, good night. And then he shuts his door. And I was like, good night. I didn't say that. I was like, I'm not dealing with that. Yeah. And then there was another time, probably like 2017-ish. My aunt and my uncle and my cousin were over at the house. And my aunt and my uncle and my mom and my dad are talking in the living room, and my cousin's the same age as my little brother, so like wherever one was, there was the other. And so they had been outside all day, and they spent like a good chunk of the evening outside too. And my dog at the time, big German Shepherd, big baby, terrified of stairs. He does not do stairs. Like, he'll be 10 this year. Doesn't do stairs. Has never done the stairs by himself. Like, dad carries him up and down the stairs if he goes downstairs. Anyway, so he was growling at the back steps out of nowhere, just growling at them. And so I went to investigate because I thought maybe like the boys are downstairs and they're messing with him. Like, I don't know. So I called down and I was like, guys, are you down there? And my aunt comes up behind me and goes, they're outside. I'm like, well, I don't know why this dog's like barking and growling at the back steps. And so I peek my head in the hallway a little bit, and it's like 4 steps down, and then there's like a landing, and then a sharp right, and then 8 more steps down the stairs. And I have so many terrible stories about these stairs. But anyway, I heard the distinct sound of my older brother's voice saying, call me, from just around the corner, like the 4 steps, and then there's like a corner on a wall, and then the 8 steps down. He would have been just behind the corner. Like, that's how it sounded. Like, the voice was like right there. And that freaked me out because there was, at that time, like, we were no contact with him. Like, we hadn't seen him in over a year. There was no way that he was inside the house. There was no way that his voice was the one that I was hearing. And so that's when I started to kind of clue in, like, maybe this is a mimic. But whatever. And so, because like I never knew what any of that was, and nobody ever explained that to me. And so, yeah, that's when I started doing the research. But a couple years before that, so like maybe, I don't know, a year and a half or 2 before that, my little brother and I got off the school bus at 2:30 every day. And then we were home alone for an hour before our mom would get home from work. And at this time, my older brother had moved back into the house for a short period of time, so his bedroom was the one off the kitchen. And so we had come home from school. My routine was to use the bathroom as soon as I got home, and then I would go put my stuff away. And so I was in the bathroom, and I could hear my little brother talking from within the kitchen to me, and I was frustrated because I told him 1,000 times before, I cannot hear you when I'm on the other side of the house. Like, save it for when I'm out there. And so I come on out of the bathroom, and I'm like, TJ, I can't hear you when you're on the other side of the house. Like, I've told you this. He goes, what are you talking about? I just saw you in our older brother's room, staring out the window with my hands clasped together as if I was praying. And I was like, that wasn't me, dude. Like, I've been in the bathroom this whole time. Like, you know the routine when we get home from school. Like, I am very set in my ways. I do the same thing at the same time every single day. And so, that freaked us out. And so, like, he saw me. It was me, like, he saw me, but there was no way that it was me. And so, yeah, like, we told these things to our parents growing up, and for the longest time, they brushed it off and acted like, you know, you're imagining things. And it wasn't until, when shit really hit the fan when I was, like, 15 or 16, where, like, they were like, yeah, no, like, we've seen things, too. And my older brother was like, yeah, no, like, I've seen things, you know. And so our dad was the only one that never saw anything. He says that he saw the girl in red that like my mom and my older brother used to see, but like from a distance. He said he never saw anything up close and nothing ever happened when he was around. And I mean, that's true, because everything that's ever happened, he, like, for me, like, he wasn't there. Like, you know, like, my dad worked long hours, so he was, like, almost never home. But he did his best, because there was 4 of us kids, so, anyway, oh, goodness, there are so many stories. There was, this one time where I woke up, I was probably about 10 or 11, I woke up, and at the end of my bed there was this girl that was about the same age as me, who looked exactly like my sister at that age, but she was wearing like white nurse's scrubs, and she was kind of like see-through, and so like when I woke up, I saw her standing there, but I wasn't scared, like, which was weird, because I was like always like a really like jumpy kid. I wasn't scared when I saw her. In fact, I was like, you look so much like my sister. Like, I didn't say that, but I remember just looking at her and being like, wow. And then the next day I had mentioned it to my mom, and she had told me about how before she got pregnant with me, a few months before she got pregnant with me, she had miscarried a set of twins at about 20 weeks. She felt like one of them was a boy and one of them was a girl. Well, she didn't tell me until like last year that she had named the girl the same name that she named me. And so as soon as she told me that, I was like, no, the girl that I used to see, like when I would wake up in the white nurse's scrubs, like, I think that's her. So I don't know, maybe. Thanks for listening. If you stayed this long, I don't make TikTok, so sorry this has been really long and I've been rambling, but enjoy.
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true. I'll go first.
I have a habit of making a short story long, so I will try to condense this as best as possible. Back in 2011, when I was 16 years old, my stepmother's brother died from doing it to himself. I still call her my stepmom. Her and my dad were long divorced at the time, but I've always called her my stepmom, and she still is to this day. So her brother passes away in 2011, self-inflictedly. And I do remember when she called me and she told me I was actually walking home from the bus stop, and I remember just dropping to the sidewalk and bawling my eyes out. This was actually an extreme reaction because even though I knew her brother and spent plenty of time with her brother, I was in no way close with him. I didn't have his phone number. I mean, I'm 16, he's in his 30s. There would be no reason for that in any way, shape, or form. We were never close at all. He was always very kind to me. Bought me Christmas gifts with the rest of my siblings, everything like that. Very, very kind man. And then I got a flashback to the last time I ever saw him. We lived in the world's smallest town. Like, when I say one stoplight town, I mean one stoplight town, like smallest town. So we're in downtown, and I'm sitting in the car waiting while my grandma ran into the bank, and I see him. And he looks up at me, smiles, and waves because he recognizes me. I don't know what came over me or what kind of fucking shit I was on that day, but I thought that I was being funny and slick by kind of being like, I don't know why. I had no beef with him. I had no beef with his sister. I don't know why I did that. That was the last time I ever saw him, and that replayed in my mind over and over, and I always wondered if I had smiled and waved and talked to him, if maybe he wouldn't have done what he did just a few days later. Not like that was the reason he did it, but maybe that act of kindness would have made him rethink it. So for some reason that I still can't explain, I took his passing very, very, very hard. Like I said, I was not close to him, but I took it hard, and it devastated me, and I cried and cried and cried and cried. My mother was the type of mother that I could be bleeding out of my eyes and I would still have to go to school. She let me miss school to go to his funeral. I will never forget sitting in that church and watching his mom rock back and forth, screaming at the top of her lungs, "My baby, my baby, my baby." I had to get myself back together. Anyway, I was bawling my eyes out as well. I took it so hard, and I think it was the manner of how his life ended that was even harder for me. And I just couldn't get over it. I was depressed and crying and miserable over this for weeks, and I wasn't even close to him. So one night I have a dream, and he comes to me in my dream, and he says, he's smiling and he's laughing. And I say, and I'm crying in my dream because that's all I did the past few weeks. And I said to him, why are you so happy? Why are you laughing and giggling and smiling? I said to him, you're dead. Why are you so happy? Why are you smiling? Why are you laughing? And he says, because this is what I wanted. I wanted this. I have never been so happy and free in my life. You need to stop crying. You need to get over it. And you need to know I am okay. I am happy. This is what I wanted. Go live your life. Do things you need to do and get over it. I could not be happier where I am. I woke up freaked out as all hell. Totally freaked out. And all day long, that's all I could think about. I couldn't think about anything else other than that dream. And I said, it's one of two things. He actually came to me in a dream and told me this, or it's my mind, you know, dream world, dream life. It's my mind playing tricks on me, whatever. I'm 50-50 on those things, the paranormal and things like that. So I'm sitting there thinking about this all day long. I get home from school and turn the TV on. It's on Lifetime. And as soon as I turn this TV on, the segment begins. Do your loved ones come back to you in your dreams to speak to you, to let you know that they're okay? The very day after I had that dream, I woke up, and that very day, that's what happened. I turned the TV on. It's Lifetime that opens up to that segment that said, do loved ones come back to you in your dreams to talk to you? I was questioning this all day. I'm sitting in front of the TV like, oh my God, this is back in 2011. This is before streaming services, any of that stuff, okay? I'm sitting in front of the TV like... And I watched the segment, and the segment says, yes, absolutely. Your loved ones do come back to you in your dreams to let you know that they're okay wherever they're at now. And that 100% solidified it for me. Now, he was very, very close with the rest of his family, including my stepmom, his sister. They were best friends. They were insanely close, best friends. I have asked other people in the family, has he ever come to you in your dreams? And every single one of them said no, never. So it was the dream on top of the whole Lifetime just so happened to be playing at the right very second that had me fully convinced it was 100% him. I still question to this day, 13 years later, why he came to me, why he didn't go to any of his other siblings, why he didn't go to his mom, why he didn't go to his dad, why he didn't go to his son. He came to me. I still don't know why to this day. It's a 100% true story, and it's a story that I will tell for the rest of my life because that's more than a coincidence. It's the most wild thing that's ever happened to me.
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true.
When I was about 15 years old, we moved into this house that was like a street over from a cemetery where two little girls who had froze to death were buried. That's not really related to this story at all. It's just the area in general has a vibe. So we moved into this house, and as soon as I walked into the house, I could feel this dark energy. And on my first night in the house, I was in the computer room and I looked out in the hallway, and out of the corner of my eye, saw something crawling down the hallway. So I went out and I turned the hallway light on, and every time that it had gotten dark and I didn't have that light on, you would see this woman crawling down the hallway out of the corner of your eye. Now, my mother thought I was crazy. I thought I was crazy. Until one day I had my best friend over, and we were sitting on the couch that was in the computer room watching anime on the computer, and it had gotten dark without me realizing because it was fall and it got dark quickly. And all of a sudden she goes, "What's that?" And I was like, "What do you mean?" And she was like, "I think I saw something in the hallway." And I was like, "Oh yeah, that's just the bloody lady. I'll just turn the hallway light on and she'll go away." But I had never told her about that because I thought I was crazy. I thought I was just seeing things and I was exaggerating. This house was very haunted. There was the bloody lady. There was this big black dog that you'd see in the corner of your eye occasionally. My mother would have dreams about
a man walking into her room. Now, her room was in the basement. My room, the computer room, and the spare bedroom were all on the top floor. I would not go into the spare bedroom. The spare bedroom was supposed to be my bedroom, but I would not go in that bedroom because there was just a really dark energy in there. And then in that same hallway with the bloody lady, there was a pull downstairs to the attic. Anytime we had to pull down the stairs to the attic, the cat that we had at the time, Kokoro, would freak out. She would puff right up, start doing the sideways dance, and like take off. She was terrified of that attic. And one notable time that I vividly remember from that house was I had my cousin over and we were again watching TV, but we were watching TV in the basement because there was like a big basement with a couch, actually the couch that I'm sitting on right now, and there was like a big screen TV with like a PlayStation and all that. So we were watching TV in the basement and all of a sudden I hear the door that had been locked, the front door, open. And so like we run upstairs and my cousin was a pretty big guy, so he went up first. The door was just open. There was no one there. It was just open. We looked in every single room. The only room we didn't look in was the attic. But then when my mother's boyfriend got home, he looked in the attic and there was no one in there. But the door had been locked. I know this because I have diagnosed OCD, and one of my things is like I have to make sure that the door is locked when I'm home because I'm scared someone's gonna break in. And then later that same night, we saw a cat, but it wasn't my cat. It was like this white cat with gray patches on it. And then it just like ran into the wall and disappeared. And then one other time I was on the phone with my cousin, and all of a sudden from the living room I hear this crash. I'm terrified. At that point, I put my cousin on hold. I called my mother and I'm like, you have to come home. Like, there's a noise. Like, I'm scared. I was in my room with the door shut at the time. So I stay on the phone with my cousin, and my mother, like, comes home from work, and the crash was the, like, fire. There was, like, this heavy metal thing around the fireplace. And it was so heavy that the cat could not have knocked it over on her own. And that was, like, on the ground, and all of the, like, fireplace tools were on the ground in front of it as well. And there was no explanation for that because, like I said, it was too heavy for the cat to knock over on her own. She couldn't do it. Like, she would get up on it and it wouldn't even move and, like, get around it, and there's no way she could have knocked it over. Because it was just way too heavy. It was like cast iron. It was really, really heavy. So anyway, that night, my mother ended up staying home, but that same night, she ended up, like, waking up screaming because, like, she was hallucinating bugs crawling all over her. And, like, that woke me up, so I ran downstairs, like, to see what was going on, and then she said there was, like, spiders crawling all over her. There weren't. It was just, like, a hallucination, but, like, whatever, I mean, there was multiple spirits in that house, but whatever, like, would toy with us like that, I don't think was ever human. But yeah, that's the story of my house that I lived in when I was a teenager.